everyone, welcome to this episode of Let's Talk, an NTUSU-initiated series discussing youth concerns. My name is Gia and I'll be your moderator for today. So with me are our panelists representing various sectors and industries in Singapore. They will be sharing with us a bit more about how gender equality ties in with the workplace. So we have with us Prof. Chan Heng Chee. We also have with us Mr. Eric Ho. We have Prof. Klein. We have with us Prof. Sirin. And then finally, we have Ms. Lauren Johnsey. NTUSU poll our own followers about their thoughts on gender equality in the workplace. Your task is to guess the percentages of agree. There will be a total of 5 statements, and I'll get you to discuss the statements with one another after we answer. So shall we start? All good? All right. Please write down how many % of our students you feel believe that the gender pay gap exists. It's like a test. Okay. All right, when you're ready, you can just turn your whiteboards over. Now take a look. Ooh. Okay, we have quite big differences. All right. About 81% of our students actually still feel. Miss Lauren, you got it. Yes, very close. All right, $1,000 right there. So I'm playing a game show. So I think before we dive into this question, I'd like to find out a bit more about Mr. Ho. I would say your answer is a little bit off from what we actually,
Typically male.
Yeah.
No, it's not. In today's world, there isn't a differentiating starting pay of anyone who's fresh grad, whether you're a male or female. Gone are the days when I started my work, when I finished my national service, I get $200 more than a female. But in today's world, be it you're a female or male, the starting pay is the same because you're hired for your merits. So that's the reason why I did give a 30%. Yeah.
I think actually where we need to focus more effort and time and energy is throughout the career life cycle. How do we empower both men and women and other genders to feel that they can take time away from the workforce for other reasons, whether that be family or other passions, because at the moment what we see is women tend to always be the ones who take the time out of their careers, particularly around families. And that's something that I think we need to be much better as organisations, as governments, to encourage everyone to take that time out.
You have to widen the pool, and you've got to get people to apply. Women don't.
Yes.
And one of the important things we have to do to help, elevate the parity or equality so that women get to the top positions, leadership positions, there must be enough women there.
Especially as you go up the chain into management, as you're saying, there were fewer and fewer women. In my school, in biology, the undergraduate girls outnumber boys pretty substantially, and that just dwindles over time. And that's not specific to Singapore either. So this is an issue everywhere. So then thinking about, well, what can we do about that? I mean, we're not running the place, so what sort of levers are there? But so we think about things like making visible the role models that exist. So the women that are at the highest levels that have power to do things, hearing their voices, elevating the women, all the cool academic work that's happening, how women are balancing, life and work and all of these different things. And so that's one of the things we think about a lot.
I think it's very comforting as well, like on my end, the conversation is steering more towards on how women can, progress instead of like, how can we even apply? So we'll move on to the next question. So we asked our students and our respondents if they felt that occupational stereotypes are true. So for example, women are better teachers, men are better bankers or engineers. So how many % do you think of our students feel that this occupational stereotype actually is true? Okay. All right. Ooh. Okay. Okay. We have a very big difference there. It's like 78%. Oh my goodness. Okay. So actually, for this question, it was a very interesting question when we asked students because the results were very polarizing. So the results were actually about 58%.
When I think about stereotypes, I think about unconscious bias. I've done a lot of unconscious bias tests myself. And I'm always so surprised about the amount of unconscious bias that I have, even around gender. I feel like, as someone who works in this space every day, I should be the one who's the least biased. But the truth is, No, I'm biased. I have biases around gender, and I also know that those stereotypes are ingrained in our children from a very, very young age. And so, I think we have a responsibility to challenge those stereotypes because they do end up impacting our children's decisions in the future.
So, now that this is the situation and we are trying to move towards a bit more of, equal representation in various industries, what else can we actually do to encourage more people to go into roles that are, dominated by certain genders? Doesn't have to be women going to STEM, but men going to nursing as well, or, more caretaking kind of roles.
It's all about ecosystem. So I think one of the main thing is to build a supportive ecosystem, which means that one needs to feel that they belong in that particular ecosystem. They can relate, they can communicate with the others, and that would give them like role models as well as their peers, which is why actually one of the reasons we started something called the promotion of women in engineering, research, and science at NTU. If you take the first letter of each word, you'll come up with the acronym.
Oh my God, powers. Okay, I got it. Okay, I got it. Yes.
You got 100%.
I would like to suggest that people fighting for gender equality drop that POWER. Why don't you go for an acronym which means options, opportunities? We always link more women in STEM, more women here as power. You threaten the men, and women are trying to, they may sort of say, why, I don't want power, and all this is fight.
Yeah, it's a fair point.
Yeah, fair point.
This actually brings into a bigger question about how we can get more of each gender to actually come into the conversation as well. So we'll move on to our next question. So we actually asked our respondents if they believe that they will be hired based on their capabilities rather than their gender. So how many percentage of our students do you feel that agreed with this statement? Alright, so we'll flash the answers. Nice, and oh my God, yay! All of y'all get prizes. But okay, yes, I think this percentage is actually really very, very close.
Wow.
Most of our students, at least 3/4 of them, were pretty confident that it's very meritocratic. Like you would not be based, hired based off a gender and things like that. So I think this also brings in a bit more to the question, of the current initiatives that actually allowed this number to be what it is right now. Because as Prof. Chan shared just now, in the earlier days, like sometimes this number is really very skewed, and you do get a bit of token hiring here and there. So whoever wants to just start to share a bit more, it'd be quite interesting.
In DBS, we actually use various online assessments as a behavioral approach, looking at how you assess the applicants in terms of the behavior, the cognitive, and as well as technical aspects, which we go through numerous of hackathons for specific roles. It's no longer a point that you look for that role particularly just for a female or a male, so you fit that role, but it is more of looking at who best fit that role. Yeah.
Actually, some of my friends from banking, have shared that there's actually gender quotas for certain roles from what they have heard or experienced. So like, some positions you need 70% of male and then the remaining 30% is women. So I just want to check. Huh? Oh, really? Oh, okay. I'm just interested.
No, that's cute. No, I don't think there's a quota for now. In fact, there shouldn't be any quota. It's important to look at data because at point of hiring at the pool, sometimes you might be just keep hiring without knowing that you're actually hiring on males or hiring on females. So every year, we are looking at data of the gender split from a bank perspective, in terms of the whole bank's various business units, etc. Because that's very important.
I was just curious mainly because there has been a bit more talk about token hiring as well, just hiring a female for the sake of doing that. Because, at least within the emails that a lot of students do get, they have a lot of women in finance, women in banking, women in this and that.
It's not about token hiring at all. Nobody wants that. Quotas, I think most people agree that's not really the way forward, but to increase the applicant pool, the diversity of the applicant pool. So, and I hear this a lot from colleagues, we would love to hire a woman for X position. We had no women candidates, no one applied. And so what we're thinking a lot about is actually targeted recruitment, going and finding those excellent women who just haven't yet applied. And so we can at least increase that pool.
I'm not sure there is such a loud cry that women feel I've been excluded from this job. I don't think you hear that as much as in the United States or elsewhere. It's not in Singapore, unless I'm not hearing right, you know. But I do hear women say, I don't get the leadership jobs, I don't get the board jobs. How come I'm not hired to the board? And that's where the tokenism, you know, a lot of boards have one woman. You know, I don't believe in quotas, but sometimes I think in the case of Singapore, coming back to the manpower question, you will find that the jobs will be open. It's the qualifications, you know.
But we're seeing more and more studies now which are actually showing us that when you've got more diversity on boards, when you've got more diversity on leadership, these companies are outperforming those that don't.
Adding on to what Prof. Chan has mentioned just now about leadership, you know, sometimes the barriers to entry is not with the initial hiring, but it's a lot on career progression. So actually the next question is that we asked our students if there is a preferred gender when it comes to leadership. You write down the percentages you think agreed to this statement.
There is a preferential gender, yes.
Okay, ooh. All right, oh, okay. I like the optimism there. So actually the answer for this is about 73% of our students felt that there is still a preferential gender when it comes to leadership.
In politics, generally, there is a preference for male leaders. And women will vote against women. They prefer to vote for male leaders. So at politics at the top, American data shows that, European data shows that. I know of no country, maybe Norway, if I get to Norway, where they say it's 50-50. And it has to do with socialization, I think. And because of the family socialization, the patriarchal family, men go out and they are the breadwinners, is so deeply ingrained that it affects us when we think of leaders, whether it is in the community or mayors.
I agree somewhat that there are certain roles where there's specific traits that are important. We want our Prime Minister to be decisive, but I worry a little bit about defining matching traits to leadership positions. I think it's more, there's a suite of traits, and it can be different, you know, strengths, completely different in different people and they would excel in that position.
Beyond that, I think all these are great points, and I think that's the basis of how we think in terms of values. But I think more importantly for an individual is to understand what you're good at, what you're not so good at, what can you maintain, and what can you improve. Eventually you grow into the role that you feel like you would be contributing the most. I think it's most important.
I do think that we're broadening our thinking around what effective leadership is, and actually that's opening up a whole bunch of opportunities, and for people to think about their strengths in light of, okay, well, what does this mean for me as a leader? I can't be everything to everyone, but I know that I'm really good at, you know, being empathetic, or I know I'm really compassionate, or I know I'm really strategic, and so therefore, you know, I can be an effective leader in a whole range of different disciplines. So I actually think we're seeing quite a big shift there at the moment, which I think is really exciting.
So I think it's been a very interesting sharing from, you know, all 5 of our panelists. So how would you advise our youth or our viewers watching this to actually continue navigating our changing landscapes? And what do you hope for companies, individuals to actually do to ensure that equity is, you know, a top priority for all of us?
I think young people in Singapore should go forward believing there are opportunities. Singapore is a land of opportunities. Don't feel constrained. And you know, life can change. You have many lives. You can do something, you don't like it, change. Go to the next life and the next. There's no just one route.
A career is like a marathon, it's not a sprint, right? So when you run a marathon, you have the passion, you have the desire to complete the marathon. And it doesn't cut across like 1-2 years, and you meet obstacles along the marathon run. Things will change, go with the passion, try it out. If you meet challenges, there is always opportunity to make a change and do a different technique or do a different things to complete that marathon.
Find allies, find advocates, find mentors. They're out there. We're there. People are happy to do that, and so ask for what you need.
If you want to be an engineer, be an engineer. It doesn't matter if you're a woman. I would like to also stress on that, and we need more of the women to be in STEM, particularly in engineering.
Yeah, follow your passion. Do what makes your heart sing. And you know what, there will be times when you end up in a job that's not quite right, but you will learn so much from that experience, and that will help you to transition back onto a path that is right for you.
Yeah, I really appreciate all of you taking the time out today to actually join us, and I appreciate all the insightful, opinions and discussions that we had. So I think with that, we'll actually come to the end of our discussion. Thanks so much. Thank you. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Let's Talk, an NTU-SU initiated series discussing youth concerns. From what Prof. Chan has mentioned and many of our panelists have echoed, the world is our oyster and it's time for us to pursue what we want to pursue with no fear and restriction on how our gender may come into play. So dare to dream, dare to pursue what you want to pursue, and I hope this episode has actually given you a little bit more confidence to move on in your career. Thank you so much for joining us today. Remember to like, share and subscribe, and let's talk about gender equality.